when you talk CPG, you have to start with one of the biggest and the best known. Scott Finlow, let's bring you in.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Scott. Good
not
to
that
see you.
big, just to be clear.
Okay. Scott.
Quite small, actually. I may look big on Zoom.
Don't we all? Scott Finlow is the Global Chief Marketing Officer for Pepsi Foodservice. The food service wing of Pepsi is both B2B and B2C side of the business, and it serves the very sectors that COVID-19 economic fallout hit the hardest: dining, lodging, events, and retail. Scott, where are you coming to us from today?
I'm in Manhattan, in Chelsea, back in the city and supporting the city I love.
Oh, those are my old stomping grounds when I was down at NYU. So tell us, a lot of what you do in marketing involves contexts, the restaurants, stadiums, connecting the brand to people in social moments. You weave the brand into these sorts of moments. So pre-COVID, what's a good example of the way you market the brands by integrating products with moments?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with if you don't mind, just a quick overview of food service for everyone, and then I'll get to that, Steve. Just to get everyone on the same page, food service is, that's where essentially you are when you're away from home. For us, it's where you're having your experiences with your family, with your friends. To put a finer point on that, it's Marriott, it's Buffalo Wild Wings, it's Pizza Hut, it's Vail Resorts. If I imagine myself in a ski area right now. So those are food service for PepsiCo. And when you think about it, those are in fact places that are highly experiential, and your mental availability for things like brands and media, is the context. That said, the context is different when you're at your college and university, or if you're at work, or if you're at Taco Bell, or if you're at Marriott, right? So to your point, we got to build our brands uniquely. I think I'll use one example. It's a really well-known example of some work we've done in food service. It's innovation on our Mountain Dew brand at Taco Bell. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called Baja Blast, and that's both a product innovation as well as an experience innovation that we created together with a customer. And I think that's very contextual from a consumer, customer, and dining perspective. So that's one example of something we've done in the past, and we're pretty proud of.
So I want to work backwards, if you don't mind, back towards the COVID crisis and how you responded to it, and maybe get a quick temperature on where we are now, where you see us now. A lot of the live venues where you typically would want to drive brand interest remain shuttered. Some are in the middle of opening. From a marketing perspective, what parts of the business have remained open for you, and what does the recovery at this stage look like for you and your marketing challenge?
Yeah. No, it's a great point. I mean, when you hear me talk about what food service is, you hear me talk about a lot of places that have been hit pretty hard by this, right? And also a lot of places that the audience is probably desperate to get back to. I'm fond of asking people, what's the first, in sort of dining room experience you want to have in a restaurant, and what's the food and who are you with, et cetera. And it really makes people want to get back to food service. And I think it dimensionalizes the appeal. But for us, a lot of customers have been hit hard. A lot of what our kind of rec and retail customers are still closed. Lodging's been hit really hard. And areas like restaurants, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. Healthcare has actually been a real positive, but you could argue for a lot of the, wrong reasons or unfortunate reasons. But I'll talk restaurants for a second. We know they've been hit hard, and I'll talk more about that. But equally, we've seen a real positive momentum in restaurants, in particular restaurants that are equipped with the capability off-premise broadly, including delivery, especially mobile and online ordering enabled delivery. And some of those restaurants, some of those customers are actually showing comps that are above year-ago levels. So, it's definitely a mixed bag. A lot of customers are hurting, and that tees up, I think, a lot of the things that we've been doing.
Since you work globally, you have multiple markets that have been coming back online and recovering at different rates. Are there any surprises or early lessons from these global markets that maybe you could share with U.S. marketers about what a recovery looks like?
Yeah, I'll maybe start by just saying for all of us here in the U.S., there are recovery does happen. We've seen it happen in places like China and some of our markets, in particular in Asia, where this started. Just in Marriott's earnings, I think they said they're up to 60% bookings in China at this point. But I'd say more broadly, it was less about surprises in terms of what's happened in some of those markets, and it's maybe more about some of the things as a global organization we've been able to learn so that we weren't surprised by what happened in the US. Mm-hmm. A couple of examples of that, and I can use some of our global customers like Yum. They recognized very early that they needed to look after their employees. They recognized very early that they needed to deliver on a contactless experience in terms of the ordering as well as the actual delivery itself. They recognized they needed to communicate with a high degree of transparency and clarity around what kind of experience they were creating and why that was safe. And I think even a level above that, the experience in China allowed us in the US to anticipate some of the closures we'd see in places like entertainment. Theaters were closing in China before they closed in the US. Same with some restaurants, and also the shift to e-commerce and retail, and some of the immense demand we saw happen in the US was something we in many ways were able to not be surprised by because we saw it happen.
How have you, I want to get, I am going to get to the COVID crisis in particular, but I'm curious about where we are now. The question I get from almost all marketers and the challenge they all face is, how do you forecast out in an environment like this? As you're planning the rest of the year and early into 2021 in this market, in the US market, how are you handling forecasting, modeling forward from here?
Yeah, with scenarios is the headline. I don't think anyone can actively predict the future. We, like I think a lot of organizations, have mapped out a set of different scenarios, call it a high, mid, and a low, maybe using different words. And we're planning literally for more of a center cut, but ensuring that we're also planning with a greater degree of flexibility for that future. And that flexibility manifests in many different ways. I think in the context of A&M budgets and media, we're in the process of building our plans for 2021 and really actively reconsidering and planning for how we can build some of that flexibility.
Does that mean also some of your product integrations have to be put on hold? Those are more ambitious projects that really aren't even as flexible as media.
Yeah, I think a couple of things we've done more broadly outside of the media front is I think we've gotten more focused in terms of let's make sure what we are putting into the world in 2021 is a priority. We're not asking the system, so to speak, from an executional point of view to do more. And, if we were planning something—
Scott froze on us.
Oh.
Or I'm frozen.
Actually, Scott, you sound fine and look fine.
Oh, got it. Well, thanks for the compliment. I'll keep going, and hopefully we'll get Steve back. Otherwise, I'll just go monologue.
I'm sorry. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
I'm sorry. I'm I'm getting a connection unstable notice here from Verizon. Sorry.
No worries. I hope Verizon's not on the call. What I'd say is if we were planning something to launch into a more experiential mode, then those are sort of things we're looking at phasing.
So one of the things your team did from the beginning was research to better understand and model out what the consumer journey, how the consumer journey was changing. Tell us a little bit about the research that you did about your consumers and the ways in which you modeled out what their behavior might be over time when it came to your category.
Yeah, I'll say I've spent part of my career in insights and part of my career in marketing, and I think it's never been more important to be connected with your insights team and making sure you're close to them, because they're the ones who are hopefully closest to consumers and people. And I just love how our function globally, as well as my insights team led by Jamie Friedman, has really stepped up. And man, I'm thankful for them and grateful for the work they've been doing to inform us. But specific to some of that work, what we did was we mapped out a set of essentially phases around, cocooning, if you remember that, and we're still to some degree in some of that, or back and forth, a kind of a restricted recovery, a full recovery, and then Lisa's favorite phrase, new normal, is what we mapped out. And, underneath that, it was a set of, essentially behaviors and feelings that underpinned that. And then more broadly, we've gotten closer to a lot of our customers in terms of understanding what's happening with them empathetically, not just the consumer, to make sure we're staying close to them. And then I think the other thing we've done is we've been much more, I think, out front in being just connecting with some of our customers in particular, and communicating with them what they're seeing, what we're seeing. We've democratized, I would say, our insights to a greater degree in the last 5 months. And it's one of the things as a big company like PepsiCo, we're almost responsible to do that. We have big insights organizations and resources. We have a lot of different partners. In the spirit of helping, like, there are ways we can use our insights to help. And I think we've tried to do that.
In fact, you executed several support initiatives along the way, and one of your responses to the crisis was this point of being of help and finding ways to help the entire chain of supply that you were involved in. Let's show a video of one example of that, and then on the other side we'll talk about about this initiative and some of the others that you implemented.
Sounds good.
Through his travels on diners, drive-ins, and dives, Guy Fieri has witnessed the unparalleled hard work and determination of America's restaurant workers.
The restaurant employees have been taking care of us. Well, now's our chance as the public to come and take care of them.
Well, Guy, you make every single one of us smile, so we here at SGN thought it was time that you smile. You have an incredible initiative going, and the last time I checked, you've raised about $17 million?
Just about 17 million.
A couple friends of mine over at PepsiCo heard that we were doing this show, and I know they've already donated to you big, but they heard you were close to 20, and they said they wanted to put you over 20, so they're donating $3 million.
Are you serious?
Yes, I am dead serious.
You've got to be kidding me. Look at the guy, dude, it's giving me goosebumps. They were the first ones that got involved in this relief.
You got to have people like you, and you got to have people willing to cross the lines like Pepsi.
Bro, I'm speechless. I'm in awe.
Kind of speaks for itself, but I should have worn my SGN T-shirt that I've got with hand-drawn Pepsi.
Wait, not everyone knows that web series, so why don't you give a brief explanation of what that was and how you integrated it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started, very quickly up front with Guy and the National Restaurant Association, and we got involved from really day one and helped stand up the Restaurant Relief Fund, which has now raised $23 million to directly support impacted restaurant workers with $500 essentially checks to those impacted workers. Guy's been very much the energy and the voice behind that. We've been trying to bring lots more people into the tent. That was a great example of getting with John Krasinski and the SGN folks. And we did it in 48 hours. I think we talked about this once before. Mm-hmm. Getting that commitment, making that announcement, making a little magic, but most importantly, you just really helping. And, SGN is something that emerged from COVID, right? So it's also an example of being responsive to emerging, obviously, media channels in the very early days, or at least the early days of what John was doing with SGN. So yeah, I think great example of helping and being responsive.
How do you measure the impact and the success of something like that?
I mean, the biggest impact is what you saw. I mean, we're trying to help. We're trying to be responsible in helping people and play a meaningful role in their lives with our brands and with the platform that we have. And if you're working in food service and the customers are who we've talked about and they're impacted in that way, then I think the way you measure it is you measure it by how much you're helping, how many people you're helping, and how many other people you're bringing in with the platform you have. I think that doesn't hurt the Pepsi brand either, but we didn't do that as an equity driver. We did that for, I think, reasons that went a little beyond that.
You discussed, when you mentioned one of the things that you learned from the global markets, especially China, was transparency. What does that mean? In terms of a global brand like yours, what does transparency actually mean for consumers, but also throughout the supply chain that you're working with? What form did that take?
Yeah, I'll say a couple of things. I think through this crisis, I think a couple of things have happened. I think as PepsiCo, and we've cascaded through our organization, I think we've been really clear about what our purpose is as a company, what mission we're on, and we're here to help. And some things we've done in food service have certainly picked up on that. So it's been good to know what kind of company and what kind of values as a company we have, and to be able to bring those forward. And I think someone mentioned it earlier. In some ways, not a lot of things are new here, exception of the pandemic. We've just done more of a lot of those things and maybe brought them forward. But the second thing that, and I can give dozens of examples, is just transparency of communication, right? Through our own organization, much more rapidly. I think we talked, I was having thrice weekly full team calls. What's happening? What are we seeing? What do we need to do? How are you doing? But we're doing the same thing with our customers as well. And, just listening to one another, understanding problems to solve. We were even exploring the ability and trying to facilitate the opportunity for customers who were, furloughing employees, for example, to come and help us because we had increased demand in our front line. So, we were looking at ways we could help address, a lot of different problems to solve. And that was really the transparency. And I think that's really continued, through the work. And
I want to remind everybody that if you have questions of Scott, please use your raise hand icon and get in line, and Lisa will call on you. I want to move towards the final part of our conversation. I want to riff off of that theme of knowing how people are feeling and talk about this theme of empathy. Because when we spoke and I interviewed you about a month ago, it was a term that came up a lot. We heard it last night at the Democratic Convention. In fact, I think Michelle Obama stole your line. But I want to talk about the role of empathy, how you define it in terms of a marketer, and then the ways in which you've gone about actually trying to implement it and gain that sense of empathy and connection with your consumers.
Yeah, it's been really great, actually, that that we've leaned into empathy, and I think as an industry, we've I think taken this time to really get closer to people and understand people. And that to me is what empathy is. It's just ensuring that you understand what people are feeling, what people are doing, and you're responding to that. And earlier I said, we're trying to help people. We're trying to focus on people, help them, and play a meaningful role. And that is not the way we talked about the work we did a year ago. So that is definitely different. The only other thing, and I've used other examples of the insights work we've done and how we've cascaded it and how we stayed close to people, and I think and brought that empathy to life. And hopefully some of the conversation shows that. I think we did it internally with our people. I think we did it with consumers, and we did it with customers across all three of those. And I think the other thing I would say about empathy for us and for anyone in the audience is I think having a sustained commitment to it is probably the most important thing. Reminding yourselves that as marketers, that's what it's at the heart of what we do, is you've got to find an insight. You've got to find attention. You've got to find a problem to solve that's truly either a consumer problem to solve, or at least an operator or customer problem to solve if you're in a B2B2C business like my team is. But if you don't have that, then you probably need to work a little harder to identify that. And it should feel real. It should feel material. It should be something you get excited about solving. And, that's where I think empathy has come back to the center as marketers and brand builders and media planners and anyone else who's in the audience. So I think you gotta recommit to that.
Mm-hmm. Lisa, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do. We have Josh, our co-host. He has a question for Scott. Are you there, Josh?
I am here. And let's see if I can actually show my face so that Steve could say I look great too, or somebody can.
Josh, I saw you at the Wall Street Journal event in November. I think you were wearing.
Oh, yeah.
You got Jordans on today?
I was no. You know what? I do actually have sneakers on today. I had my Jordan shattered backboards. Good memory. I appreciate that. I spent a lot of time on building that sneaker game, and now it's all for naught. So
yeah.
There I am. But it's good to see you, and thanks for the perspective. I guess one of the questions that I know we've talked about it at Bear, but I think other folks have sort of in our circles have asked as well is, can you talk at all about just like maybe tone of creative or different things that you've done around creative? Because I think there's first and foremost, like, what's the voice that you use, right? So people in offices, blowing out birthday candles, probably not going to work now. But there's a little bit of like, what do you start with there, but also how do you get the production piece put together in a way that you can change things with everything being so separated out? So love to hear any perspective you have on that.
Yeah, I think on the tone front, you're absolutely right. And, the reference to, no more piano music, like a lot of us were quite somber and respectful. And I think that wasn't a bad thing, by the way. I think that was not a time to be, to be clever or to be fresh or, there were moments of humor that were certainly possible. And I think as we move through those phases, we've learned that people are looking for a little bit of joy. And as PepsiCo, we've tried to do that with some of our work. I'll use an example, the Bubbly brand, which is a playful instigator, which you may know, pivoted and responded. They've been from day one committed to LGBTQ rights and a big supporter of Pride in New York and nationally. And I think pivoted to stay committed to that with a consistent brand voice and in a way that I think helped out. So that's an example. I think Pepsi found ways as a brand to respond and help out around some events. There was the Global Citizen work that happened, and it was more about continuing to be unapologetic, which is Pepsi's tone and voice, but making sure that the brand voice and was very consistent, but the application was very considered. And I'll say there are a lot of things we haven't done because we want to make sure that we are we're being really careful and considered at this point with our brands. But I don't think any brand has changed their voice or tone, just trying to contextualize it in that way. I think on the production front, honestly, I don't know that I have anything to share in particular there. I mean, I'd probably do more listening than talking on that front. I don't have a ton of experience that's probably relevant there. So I don't know if that's helpful. And if not,
no, so very helpful, at least to me.
Great, thanks, Josh. And just to clarify, I was just subtly making fun of you guys a little bit with the YouTube video reference as far as everyone having the same message.
Oh, no, you're right.
No,
you're absolutely right.
You did what you knew. Like no one knew how to respond. So that was definitely, I think it was accurate at the time, as you said, and it's just something that we need to think of. But so I just wanted to make sure that I'm giving any jabs.
I've said it before. That's what I say. No more piano music. I stole it shamelessly from someone else, and I say the same thing.
Yeah.
A lot of black and white imagery, a lot of piano music. I think I'll use an example. I love what, Burger King, unfortunately not a customer of ours, but, obviously amazing work that they do and like the creative culture that they have. And I think, for example, the mask with the order on it is, I think is genius. That's a great example of consistent brand voice, doing it in context, actually being helpful, probably not at scale, but still helpful, generating some buzz. And, that's a great example of, not a competitor, but a non-partner of ours doing some amazing work that I admire.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for questions. We're running long. So, but thank you, Scott and Josh. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott. Good to see you guys again.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.